What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Canes Insight Daily Podcast, powered by Anajar and Levine Accident Attorney. Happy Monday. Getting back to school for the kids. A lot of people getting back to work full speed. And, we never stopped. We kept it rolling here on the Canes Insight Daily Podcast because there's a lot happening, a lot of commitments over the weekend, a lot of news, a lot of stuff to get to. We'll be catching up with everything here, plus looking forward to what is going to happen in the portal now. What are still on the agenda? What are the needs? What's Miami's plan going forward? We'll talk about all that. First, we'll talk about some folks that always have a plan. That is Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Anajar and Levine. Pete, hop in here.
What's up, D?
Oh, man, a lot to catch up on, a lot to get to. We are, I don't want to say we're through the portal because we're not, hopefully not, the first portal season, but most of the windows have closed, so we kind of know who's in play, what's on the agenda, what needs to get done, and there's still a lot of work to do for the Canes, but some very big additions over the weekend, starting caliber players, in some cases impact caliber players that are going to be making a big difference for the Canes.
Yeah, I really like this group of guys that they picked up over the weekend. Filled some big needs. Obviously, at defensive back with Ethan O'Connor, Alex Bauman at tight end, I think is a really, really huge one. A lot of production at Tulane from him, and then the third one there, James Brockermeyer, who will come in and be your starting center.
Yeah, I got some intel on all these guys, so let's get to it. Pete, who do you want to start with here?
Let's start with Ethan O'Connor, because I think that's probably been a position that Canes fans outside of quarterback would say is the biggest of need. He was the number 2 cornerback in the entire transfer portal. He has the physical tools. He has the production. And Washington State was pretty good to Miami last year.
By the way, I appreciate the like and sub. Clutch 22 with the iconic Dwayne Wade there, Pete, in the picture there. So anyways, yeah, O'Connor's a stud. Looking at him, as far as the PFF grades through the roof, the highlights through the roof. I watched some game film on them, which I don't love for corners because TV copy, you can't really see how they're covering on every single play. Really, coach's tape is the name of the game when it comes to the cornerback position. But this is a guy that you could just see anywhere you watch. He is making plays on the ball, 4 interceptions, extremely twitched up, timed up to 22 miles per hour, according to our reads that we use at the University of Miami. So this is a fast player. He's got length. He's over 6 foot. It was a Miami-Georgia battle, right? T-Rob wanted this guy bad for the Georgia Bulldogs, ultimately goes to the Miami Hurricanes, starting caliber, 3 years of eligibility, exactly what the doctor ordered at corner. So you look at the cornerback board. You land Charles Brantley. This is a guy who's been around the college game for a long time, originally from Venice, Florida, goes to Michigan State. It's one of the top corners in the Big Ten this year and has been a playmaker really throughout his career. The reason he's not in the pros is, number 1, he's been injured. And number 2, he's not a size speed kind of guy. He's really just more of a good athlete, good football player, guy that can, find the ball, guy that can tackle, guy that can make plays. So he comes to you as your veteran, proven player from Michigan State, Charles Brantley. He'll start either in the nickel, where his skill set might fit best from a physical standpoint, hasn't played there a ton. We got to see who the new defensive coordinator is and how he wants to use these guys. And then he can also play outside where he's most comfortable. You then bring in Emmanuel Carnley, who's a number 6 overall corner in the portal, corner 247, kind of a polarizing prospect, doesn't have the best PFF. And people that have played against them, college coaches, said that he's better than Takario Davis, the other corner who's flirting with the NFL draft right now. He might go to Washington. We'll see where that one lands. But Carnley, the other Arizona corner, the one that went to Miami, 6'3", really fast for his size, fluid for his size. He's got the click and close. He's got, just the movement skills of a smaller player. Got suspended a game for a spitting incident. So, that's a little something to keep an eye on, but someone that evaluators and opposing coaches are very high on here as we watch Ethan O'Connor. So 2 guys from the old Pac-10, one Arizona, now in the Big 12, one Washington State, now independent. And really similar players when you look at the profile. Redshirt freshmen, both of them, that played a lot of snaps this year. Guys that will have 3 years of eligibility. Guys that have a little bit of an edge to them, both from the state of California. And they had big schools after him. Again, we got O'Connor over Georgia. Currently, we beat out Ole Miss football is ahead of them. Toolsy guys that can make a lot of different kinds of plays. And Miami might not be done at the cornerback position, even after adding these 3 starting caliber talents.
A lot of questions here about the defensive coordinator search, a timeline there, quarterback as well. Do you have anything new on that? As the focus has been wrapping up a lot of the portal class, I know, but in terms of coordinator search, Mario has always kind of kept things tight-lipped when he's had to make these decisions.
Yeah, I say this all the time. There's no bit of info or bit of, how do I say this? There's no situation that involves more misinformation than coordinator searches, right? So I get a million texts from people that I know are somewhat plugged in at the least, giving me information, and always turns out to be wrong. And when I talk to my sources directly, I don't get anything on this particular issue. This is just how Mario operates with the coordinator searches. It's just always a lot of misinformation, a lot of names that aren't real, maybe one or two names that's real, and then a name that no one's ever heard of being the guy. I think Dawson, there was a little bit of buzz before he got hired, but that's pretty much it. So we'll see. We've talked about some of the names. I heard the timeline will be faster this time, which isn't saying much because this usually takes forever with Mario. He's very thorough in his process. So we'll see. But, Miami was able to land the defensive transfers it wanted without the defensive coordinator. I think that's something that's important to note. So Miami was able to land David Blay, the defensive tackle they targeted to be their starting caliber D tackle. They got him from Louisiana Tech, first team All-Conference USA, beat Penn State for him. The corners they wanted, there's 4 of them. They've gotten 3, right? O'Connor, you beat Georgia for him. Carnley, you beat Ole Miss and Michigan for him. Brantley, I'm not sure who else was involved, but, that was a guy they targeted as the most productive of the 3 in college. So you got those 3. Big piece is Xavier Lucas, who we've already gotten a lot of questions about it in the chat. Xavier Lucas, the standout corner from Wisconsin, 6'2", over 200 pounds, runs a 10,500 meters, complete physical freak, went to American Heritage, started off at Deerfield Beach where he was a teammate of O.J. Frederique, Miami's freshman All-America corner. O.J. Frederique barely beat out Xavier Lucas for freshman All-America this year. So both of those guys had great freshman years, tons of tools. Again, the size and speed with Lucas is rare. He also could be a potential safety. So his situation's been well documented. We talked about it on here. He wants to transfer. Wisconsin's holding it up, claiming tampering and just kind of making a mess of it. They're really frustrated to lose a player of this caliber. I think one Wisconsin writer called this the worst loss in Wisconsin history from a portal standpoint. So big-time player for them. He met with the NCAA once NCAA opened back up late last week. Everything I'm hearing from this side of the table is that they expect it to get done this week and in a positive way. And if Xavier Lucas gets in the portal, Miami's going to go right to the top of the list, and you could see him and Frederique reunited as the top young cornerback tandem in the NCAA, while also having O'Connor and Carnley, who are top corner prospects. So this room went from having nobody to being pretty stacked overnight if you get an Xavier Lucas. Of course, they got to produce on the field and everything else. But those 2 plus Brantley, who I think when you see these longer corners emerge on the board, you see him sliding more towards that nickel spot. Just seeing how this works. Damari Brown's another guy who really talented. Could he end up at nickel? Could he end up at safety, which might be his best position? These are things I think the next defensive coordinator will dictate how he uses all these guys and what he wants for these different roles. But for now, you're getting all the defensive talent you can get in the door. And I think if Xavier Lucas jumps in the portal and he, I don't think the defensive coordinator is going to affect that recruitment. You've pretty much checked what you wanted to in this early stage for the defensive side of the ball, even with the defensive coordinator in flux.
The question here about the Branch brothers. Obviously, we saw they committed to Georgia. How close was Miami there?
They visited, they had a good visit. I think it was 2 things at play there. Number one, they want a lot of money, and, the production probably didn't match what the money was. These guys have a lot of hype social media wise. And because Zachariah Branch had so many great highlights in high school and as a freshman at USC, just based on last year's film, you wouldn't say this player matches the price. I think that had a lot to do with it. And then also, you have no quarterback right now, and you're kind of working through that process, which is, to be honest, let's just be real. That is priority 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for the Miami Hurricanes right now. See if you can solve that problem right now. So I think that all had to do with the Branch brothers not coming to Miami. Georgia doesn't have a quarterback either, but I think the money and the brand helped them there. Also, these were Jordan brand players, so the Adidas thing I think factored in a little bit because there's an Adidas school. They were players that already had their own independent Jordan brand deal. Noah Thomas, who was visiting Georgia this past weekend, he's a guy Miami would love to get in on a visit. Texas A&M's trying to bring him back to the fold, but Miami would love to get in on that sweepstakes too. Bigger receiver, much different than Zachariah Branch, but someone that they're targeting.
You want to talk about these pickups on the offensive side of the ball here?
Yeah, and look, offense is going to be the name of the game. I mentioned the quarterback, and before I even get to that, because that's, the topic of the day, Miami's working there, man. Miami's working through their options. Some of this stuff is out in the open. Some of it's not. It's just the nature of the beast. You know how I feel, and I've been on this podcast for a while saying I would have loved to see us go after Mendoza. I think he would have been here already, but Miami's aiming differently, and we'll see how this all shapes up. At this time last year, you didn't have a Cam Ward. He was on the way to the NFL, so a lot can change in a short period of time. This is not really info. This is me talking personally. This is my personal view of the situation. I think the name that makes the most sense, Pete, Carson Beck. He's the shoulder or the elbow's been resolved. He's had the surgery. The prognosis is he'll be throwing by spring. You saw Brock Purdy have a pretty much identical injury before his season where he almost won MVP and went to the Super Bowl and lost no velocity. And Brock Purdy got injured like 2 months later. So the health part, I think, is, you never know, but the health part looks good, so you're comfortable with. And Carson Beck, I mean, the guy's been one of the most productive players in college football the last couple of years. He's thrown for a zillion yards. He was projected first pick of the draft heading into this year. Didn't have the consistent season you'd expect this year. Had too many turnovers. But look, you've now seen this offense without Carson Beck. They have no receivers. They led the nation in drops, and you saw a critical drop here in the playoff game. So, and the running game is not what is Nick Chubb and Sony Michel are not out there running back for Georgia. They've fallen off there. So, I think Beck carried them, I think, more than people want to admit. Now, when they had Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey, he had a premium weapons, elite weapons, but he had elite numbers to go along with that against great competition. So to me, Georgia has Gunnar Stockton. He'll probably be their quarterback. I don't know if that's something that they're ready to move off from, even though to me, he didn't look that great. The NFL draft with the elbow, it becomes complicated for Beck. There you saw a lot of buzz from the NFL side that he should not have gone pro. He still has the option to return. I think Miami is no doubt, no brainer, the best fit for all involved, including Miami. We'll see. This is me talking. This is not like some sort of info that I'm trying to feed undercover. This is what I think should happen if everybody acts logically, but I don't know how this thing is going to work out. And, maybe there's stuff I don't know about this process, but that to me makes a lot of sense.
Right. And like you said, he still has a little bit of time to decide here.
Yep. Callie Kane, am I excited about WB on Netflix today? Absolutely. Unbelievable. We've come a long way from where we were when I was a kid. And Netflix, multi-billion-dollar deals. Maybe former Kane, The Rock, Dwayne Johnson makes an appearance. We'll see. But
D, just to give a little background too, because I know some people, and it's not even about hiring an agent anymore, guys. And it's actually technically never been about hiring an agent. It's been about, there's a deadline to actually to declare with the NFL, which is January 15th. If you're in a championship game, it's going to be January 24th, but you have to actually submit paperwork with the NFL to declare for the draft and basically give up your last year of eligibility if you do have any. So he still has 9 days here is the deadline. So it's the hiring an agent thing that's always kind of been the sign that they're going pro. But in today's day and age, these guys have had agents. So it's actually submitting the paperwork to the NFL, which is what Cam Ward didn't do last year either.
Yep.
Like he announced he was declaring and then didn't declare.
And that might be what G's talking about here. So, we'll see how that plays out. This is my personal opinion that makes sense. I think a lot of people I've seen in the comments, some folks said no on Beck. I mean, look, guys, look at Carson Beck's numbers. I mean, truly look at them and understand he did not play with the elite players on offense that people think he did. He did for a period when he had McConkey and when he had Bowers, but at that point he was projected the number 1 overall pick in the draft. So he did what he was supposed to do with that caliber of player. This year, they didn't have much. They were one of the, to me, in my opinion, their skill positions I thought was some of the worst in the SEC. I mean, period. Like, who on Georgia's skill positions do you guys like? Who do you like, Pete? I mean, which Georgia skill position players were any good? Their running backs to me were dead average.
Delp's not bad.
not bad,
I
but
mean, he's not a Bowers, but he's a solid tight end.
he's decent. I mean, I thought Vanderbilt had a much better tight end than him. So, I mean, it really was not a lot of players here, guys, for Georgia. And he still threw for almost 3,500 yards this year. So I think he's a no-brainer option. I think we are a no-brainer option for him, but we'll see. Quinn Ewers has been speculated a lot. There's real smoke there, but here the problem with Ewers is I think he's probably going to end up going pro. He's having a good playoff, right? So he is someone, because since he's not in, I mean, he's injured, but he's not injured as bad as Beck. I could see him going pro, and then you're stuck without that. Someone asked in the comments about drones. Scuba Steve, I believe, was the one asking about drones. I think it's something you look into. Drones this year didn't have a great year and was hurt. Had a great game against the Canes. Had a really good year the year before. 17 touchdowns, 3 picks, and he ran the ball well. More of a boomer bust with him. I don't know much about drones as far as the person. If he's one of these guys that's just like an elite character guy, that would make me feel more comfortable about projecting him to be successful. So I don't know enough about drones, and I'm sure the staff knows more than I do. I'm sure they're doing that digging right now. I know he is someone that if he entered the portal, obviously Miami would take a look at him. He just re-upped with Virginia Tech, so he's not looking at the moment to jump in the portal. But, I mean, Miami's situation is a lot better than Virginia Tech's. So we'll see. I've been saying it since way before the second half of the Iowa State game. You guys have listened to the show all the time. We got 1,100 on and more every second. You guys know, I think we need a portal quarterback. I never bought this, Emory gives us a chance. We got to upgrade the talent in that room. And I think Drones could be that. I have to study him more. He wasn't that good this year, but he does have a lot of talent, and he looked like the complete stud against the University of Miami. That I could tell you.
Kane thing saying yours is a done deal to Notre Dame. I mean, look, I never count anything out, but Notre Dame, I don't know if it doesn't seem like they're going in the portal this year for a quarterback. And I see other destinations as a better fit for them.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. So I appreciate you, Jimmy. Hit that like button. So, let's talk about the Beacon Adjusters prospect of the week, because we're talking about these quarterbacks. We can go back to it, but they got to throw to somebody, right? Miami lost a lot of talent on offense. You bring in CJ Daniels, which I think is a good Horton replacement, but you need to at least start replacing some of the production from Elijah Arroyo, who I still believe. Tyler Warren's incredible. Colston Loveland, good player. Mason Taylor, good player. Fandon from Bowling Green, great player. There's a lot of really good tight ends this year. Probably the best tight end draft in a few years. I still think Elijah Arroyo is the best tight end in the draft. The speed, the size, the fluidity, the hands, plus he's tough and he's willing to block. He played to the last snap of that Pop-Tart Bowl despite his injury history. I'm all in on Arroyo. You got to replace him. It's not going to be one guy. Elijah Lofton's a complete stud. He's going to take some of those targets, but one name that's going to help fill that void is our Beacon Adjusters prospect of the day, and that is Alec Bauman, the tight end from Tulane. He's originally from Red Hook, New Jersey. I mean, we did a cut up of this guy on Twitter. You can check it out on the website. Can't play it here for copyright reasons, but I knew this guy was a good athlete, but watching some of these cut ups from our guy Noah Perez, shout out to him. You can follow him on Twitter. I'm super impressed with what he brings to the table. 6'5", 245, great athlete. Was actually recruited as a defensive end out of high school, but has played tight end for Tulane. Had the game-winning catch. Remember that Cotton Bowl game where Tulane defeated USC? Michael Pratt did the game-winning touchdown. Just an incredible moment for Tulane football. Bauman caught that touchdown as a true freshman from Pratt. You look at the number, 6'5", 245, like I mentioned. 12 touchdown passes in the past 2 years. Over 3 years, he has over 1,500 snaps, 53, 38 games, 63 catches, 610 yards, 13 touchdowns. Talking to people about this guy, he's all about football. He's super focused, a consummate athlete. He was a great basketball player in high school. Watch some of his highlights. He could really handle the ball, super coordinated. 73% of his snaps was as an inline tight end. And even though it was a run-based offense, he actually projects more as a pass catcher, close to a 70 grade as a pass catcher from PFF. Run blocking grade, much less than that. 2 drops this year, 8 drops in 3 years. So he catches the ball. Core special teamer as well for Tulane, just to show you how focused he is on playing football. Fluid mover. I'm a big fan of this guy. I think he's got a great chance to be a huge contributor to Miami as a tight end.
Yeah, really good sense for the football in the air. I mean, it's so often with these tight ends, it's such a position of physicals, right? Of size and speed and strength. And this guy's not going to be running a 4.4, 4.5, but at the end of the day, he really looks like a guy who understands the position, finding pockets in a defense, and really, I mean, he's not like a project in terms of becoming a receiver. A lot of times we see these athletic freaks at the position. So, well, that, he can really be a great threat as a receiving tight end. This guy's already that, right? So, a really nice complementary piece with Lofton there. I think you still need to get another inline tight end to add to the room, because even if Riley Williams came back, I've been saying I think they needed another one, just because Lofton's a different type of offensive weapon. But huge fan of this pickup. Legit red zone target, which, Cam McCormick provided a bit of that this year as well for Miami. Obviously, he did a lot of blocking for the Canes, but had some big, red zone touchdowns as well.
Yep. And look, I could see a situation, you mentioned the other tight end, where you get Luka Gilbert in spring and Brock Schott, and you kind of see what you had with the young tight ends. How ready are they to play right away? Then maybe after spring, you add a blocking tight end. I mean, those guys aren't too expensive. They're not big ticket items. Boutman's a much bigger ticket item because of his receiving ability. So let's see what Luka Gilbert's really big. He's 6'7", but I heard he's actually heavy. So we'll see how ready he is to play. Brock Schott maybe taking some of the load off Elijah Lofton. That'll be sorted out in spring. I see after spring you evaluate what you still need a tight end. Plus, God forbid someone gets hurt. But listen, if God forbid your property is affected by Hurricane Helene or Hurricane Milton or any other storm, Beacon Adjustors Group is here to help. With years of experience handling storm-related damage, we work tirelessly to ensure you get the compensation you deserve. From assessment to settlement, our team of trusted experts will guide you every step of the way. Don't face the aftermath alone. Let Beacon Adjustors Group restore your peace of mind. Call us today, 954-466-4224, 954-466-4224. All right, I want to get to this question here from Edward Herrera. Appreciate your support. Any chance that we hire a QB coach to lessen the load on Dawson? We need to start developing QBs. We should call Dorsey's agent, Ken Dorsey's qualifications as a quarterback coach are undeniable. What do you think? So Ken Dorsey, for those who don't know, a quarterback coach for the Bills with Josh Allen and his success, also with Cam Newton, ends up becoming the offensive coordinator for the Bills when Brian Daboll goes to New York Giants. That doesn't work out. Then ends up at Cleveland this year as offensive coordinator. That doesn't work out. He's fired. So he's up for grabs. The thing is, Dawson runs a different system than what you see in the pros. He's an air raid guy. I imagine, and Pete, chime in because you know the pro dynamics. I imagine if Dawson were to get a quarterback coach, it'd be more of like an underling of his that knows what he wants. But I think Dawson is, he likes to coach the quarterbacks.
Well, yeah, that for sure. And I mean, Dorsey, he's been in the pro game for so long. He's obviously been everywhere, not everywhere, but he's been a few spots now. And I just think a guy like that tends to stay in the NFL unless he really wants to switch his career up. I don't see him coming back down to the college level, for one. And to the other point of this question, when he says that we need to start developing quarterbacks, look, everyone wants to have the quarterback of the future on the roster. The situation they're in right now is not a good one, right? I don't think anyone can deny that. We can't sit here and defend, where they're at and say that we'd be happy about the situation heading into next season if there isn't anyone added to the room. But I look at the teams remaining in the college football playoff and I see most of these guys are transfers. We actually did a bit of a research thing in our group chat show earlier, looking at some of the top quarterbacks from the class a couple years ago, and I just think that's what it's going to be. It's going to be musical chairs at this position moving forward. It's going to be pretty rare to see teams consistently have a homegrown talent at quarterback.
Yeah, I think the most important thing with quarterbacks right now is evaluation, right? And figuring out who fits your system and having that eye towards how this guy will translate to what I like to do, because you can recruit them out of the portal and really project a little more. And portal's not just about getting a Cam Ward this instant. You can identify guys that maybe have played but haven't played that well and see, hey, I can get more out of this guy, or Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix types, or even guys that played less than that, Sam Levitt, that went to a new school and blew up. So you could find guys like that if you have an eye towards exactly what you want in your system and what you need and what guys could flourish in your system.
Yeah, 818 Cali Kane says he doesn't think Dorsey's going to get another chance in the NFL. I mean, look, not as a play caller right now, but the carousel of coaching in the NFL is, a lot of guys bounce around and get second opportunities. Like someone said earlier, his work as a quarterback coach has been pretty good. His track record speaks for itself. He didn't have much to work with there in Cleveland this year.
No, that was a busted job from the start. I mean, I saw that then against the Dolphins. I mean, that team had no chance. They stunk. The Buffalo thing's a little different because that was a team that disappointed, that obviously had a lot of talent. So, we'll see. I just don't see an air raid. Like with coaching, it's not all-star teams, right? It's about having everybody on the same page, because if kids are hearing different things from different people, they're both their coaches, it can get really ugly. That's when you really have problems. So, when you put together a staff, it's very much not about all-star team. It's about, can these guys speak the same language? Remember when you had Gaddis and Ponce? They were both saying different things to these quarterbacks, and they were a mess. You got to have one voice. And that's why I like Shannon being the quarterback coach and the OC, because he can kind of speak with one voice to these quarterbacks.
T Love 42 says, why can Saban have tons of former coaches and analysts, but we can't get Dorsey?
That could be a possibility. I don't know what his buyout situation is, but if financially it makes sense, he could be a.
Yeah, we aren't saying it couldn't happen, but a lot of times it's just like what a coach is willing to do at that point of his career too. It could be maybe Dorsey does say, let me kind of take a year off coaching and get a different perspective at the college level. You never know.
Yeah, analyst to me is a different story than
QB coach. That's the question that we were asked was QB coach.
But listen, no matter who's playing quarterback or coaching the quarterbacks, you got to have the guy snapping it to him. So Miami was able to secure a center that they feel real good about. James Brockermeyer, 6'3.5", 300 pounds, 931 collegiate snaps, both offense and special teams. So he's played some football, was with Alabama, was a highly rated kid coming out. I think it was the number one center according to ESPN. Goes to Alabama, doesn't really live up to it there. Transfers to TCU, has a really nice season this past year at TCU. All honorable mention, all Big 12. I think he, pass protection grades through the roof. That's really where he excelled, was protecting the quarterback. And talking to some sources about how he fits into Miami, the idea is this guy was exceptionally smart, great technique, great pass blocker. The run blocking, what TCU asked him to do is different than what he's going to be asked to do here at Miami. We are very much a double team oriented system, a lot of duo. And the thought is this guy double teaming with Matt McCoy, this guy double teaming with Inez Cooper, they're going to push guys out the way. It's not going to be his run blocking, his lack of pure power is not going to be as much of a problem as it was maybe at TCU. And then the strengths that he has, the IQ, the technique, the pass pro, that's all going to be there. So Miami views Brockermeyer as a really good system fit. They had a ton of success with Matt Lee, who was one of the best centers in America. Zach Carpenter, who was not as acclaimed, but he held together. He was a center on the best offense in the country, so he did his job. They have a lot of faith in Brockermeyer to do what they need him to do. Football family, dad played for Texas, played 9 years in the pros, very tuned into college football. He's like an analyst of college football as well, and offensive lineman. So the fact that he wanted his son to be here with Coach Mirabal, I think tells you about Mirabal's reputation, not just here in Miami, but nationally as an offensive line coach.
Yeah, and look, this is, like you said, the third year in a row here that Miami's gotten a center with a lot of experience, and it's been pretty seamless the last two times around.
Yeah, Dominic's saying, Miami, please go get Jaden Rashada. Might be a stud for us. He was looking good as a freshman at ASU last season. He really did have some nice moments at ASU. I'm surprised that he's bounced around like he has. But I think at this point, that's too much noise, right, for a school like Miami, or really any kind of big name school like that's been ranked in the top 10 this season. I think for him, he's more go G5 or low P4 where you're going to get the football and then show that you could play. And then if you need to transfer back up, you could transfer back up. But he needs snaps. He needs guaranteed snaps, sort of rehabilitate his career. You saw Malachi Nelson sign with UTEP, another guy in that class.
Does UCF have their QB yet?
Dylan Rizek from Broward County.
Yeah, he played well at the end of the year there.
The true freshman. So I think Rashada should, right now, committed to Miami, committed to Florida, or signed with Florida, ends up at Arizona State, then he goes to Georgia. Now he's on his fifth commit/school. That's a lot for a quarterback who's the leader of your team. So I think he needs to just go to a school, play ball. Preferably stay at that school. You don't need to go pro by going through a Power 4 school. But if you perform there, you could have Power 4 options at the end of the day if you need to go to a 6 school. But I think that's what he needs. And that's what when we talk about why I believe portal's the name of the game at quarterback, look at that top 10 from the class of 23. That's not that long ago, right? That's, these guys are sophomores this year or redshirt freshmen. Dante Moore's already transferred. Jaden Rashad has already transferred twice on all his other, travels. Malachi Nelson has already transferred twice. I mean, these are the big names of that class, and they're all, on the move. So aside from, Arch Manning, who where he's at, he's going to get his opportunity now. Nico from Tennessee, he's been okay. I mean, has he been the number 2 player? Excuse me, the number 2 quarterback here as I pull up the rankings? I don't see that, especially for what he cost.
Look, I just pulled it up here, D.
All right, so let's take a look here. So you got Manning, who hasn't played, but I think he'll be good. Nico has been okay, not worth the cost. Dante Moore transferred. Jackson Arnold transferred to Auburn. Dante Moore transferred to Oregon. Could be good players, by the way, both of them, but they transferred. You get them in the portal. Malachi Nelson, 2 transfers. Jaden Rashada, 2 transfers. Aiden Childs transferred to Oregon State. Austin Mack transferred, I want to say, to Alabama. Where's Austin Mack? But he is at Alabama. Yeah, with Kalen DeBoer. I don't know if he's going to play anytime soon. Avery Johnson's been pretty good. Christopher Vizina has not played because he's been behind Kay Klubnik. And then, this guy for Ohio State's buried. And then Eli Holston, who you see down here, transferred to Pitt. So the portal to me is the name of the game. Unless you're like getting the number 1 player, if you're getting Arch Manning, sure. But beyond that, it's kind of a crapshoot.
Let's see what else we got here.
A lot of discussion here about Notre Dame's Notre Dame's quarterback. Pete mentioned that, as far as the Ewers talk, Freeman's telling people he doesn't want a portal quarterback. So take it for what it's worth. That's what he's saying. He has Steve Angeli, who I like. I think that guy's pretty good from what I've seen in his limited snaps. CJ Carr, highly touted freshman last year from Michigan. You could see him potentially from the state of Michigan. You could see him potentially winning that job. I think he might be the betting favorite over Angeli. But I like them both. Kenny Minchie, talented guy from the Tennessee area. They got some good talented quarterbacks there at Notre Dame. I would not bring in a portal necessarily if I'm them. I think if those guys look in practice the way they look when they get opportunities, I think they got some pretty good players there. We'll see what they do.
And look, it's Riley Leonard. I'm a huge fan of. But I think that you can be a little bit more dynamic through the air with someone else potentially.
Yeah,
he does a lot of great things on the ground and plays winning football. But yeah, I don't think it's the end of the world if you test your hand with someone else there.
Jeffrey Francis saying Al Golden's got Notre Dame's defense on fire. Better fit for Al Golden for a couple of reasons. Number one, he's not the head coach. He's DC, which was his role at Virginia where he had success at the ACC level. I think this type of defense he wants to play, which is very challenging mentally, and then you need pure size, more than just pure athleticism. I think fits better with the players you're going to recruit to Notre Dame than Miami. Those Notre Dame players are usually bigger coming in. They're usually just more cerebral. Notre Dame is not the easiest school to get into. So, those guys fit that kind of system better. So he can get the kind of guys he needs. It's just more of a natural fit. Whereas Miami, you had great players, guys that would go on to the NFL that were not playing very well in his system. And him and D'Onofrio had the same system because it was just foreign to their style of play. You had Denzel Perryman doing things he shouldn't have been doing. You had the D linemen doing things they should not have been doing. Just wasn't a fit. Manny, much better fit for what we had. Golden actually recruited some good players to Miami. A lot of NFL guys, more than we had under Manny and Richt. But they were in the wrong system. Manny put Golden's recruits in the right system, and we played some pretty damn good defense for about 4 years. Then Manny's recruits started, and Rick's recruits started coming in, and they weren't as good. So, that's sort of how that thing went.
Yeah. Let's see. That's what T-Love says. Agreed on system fit.
Got 1,700, by the way. Like and subscribe to the show. Appreciate everybody. Get your questions in. While the questions are coming in, let me talk to you about the number 1 Cuban restaurant in the city of Miami, which means it's the number 1 Cuban restaurant on planet Earth. That is Islas Canarias. It is the spot. I was just there just the other day. Line was out the door. You see me wearing my Croqueta County shirt. You can get that at croquetacounty.com. That's all Islas branding. That's how big the brand is. You see them at the Marlins games. You see them all over the city of Miami because this is where real Miamians go to get, real South Floridians go to get their Cuban food. You got the 2 classic restaurants there. Pull up the addresses because I can't see as clear.
13695 Southwest 26th Street and 3804 Southwest 137th.
And then, of course, at the Dining Pavilion in Dayland, if you are a little bit more east, a little bit more north, the Dining Pavilion in Dayland, the food court, all the same classics that you get at the mothership, and really fast, but doesn't compromise on quality. Line always out the door because it's the best, but it moves fast because they got a lot of really good people behind the door in the kitchen. So shout out to Islas Canarias, the #1 Cuban restaurant in Miami. And if you like those Croqueta County shirts I wear, croquetacounty.com for those. So good question here from W. What's up with the text you got on the stream the other day? Is that still a possibility? No. That one came and went. You saw Gabby kind of hinting at stuff on 247. Same bit of information. Didn't pan out. Miami is looking at other options there. But no, that one did not come to fruition. Fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know what people think about what would have happened, but Miami's moved on to other targets, and they got a lot of work to do because the quarterback position, in my view, is a must get for this program based on everything we've seen to date.
D, should we talk about go ahead.
Got a question from D Zadine. What's the role of Taylor Edwards versus Dennis Smith? So we should talk about Taylor Edwards here. Pete, pull up his bio. So, Taylor Edwards coming in to Miami to be basically like a GM. They're still sorting out the roles. I think Dennis Smith and Taylor Edwards will still both have, prominent roles in the recruiting department, but Taylor Edwards certainly is a big addition. This guy was a rising star at South Carolina. You've seen South Carolina improve their talent. You saw how good they looked this year and some of the studs they had on the roster. Taylor Edwards was the GM for all of that. Got caught in a situation where, from what I understand, this is just based on publicly available stuff, nothing I've dug into, but he was talking to a recruit who was about to jump in the portal but hadn't jumped in the portal yet. And then the recruit had some problem with his girlfriend, his own girlfriend, and then he blew up everything, including text to Edwards, which led to him leaving South Carolina. But he's clear. He's ready to rock and roll and work. He was going to go to UNC with Bill Belichick, but Mario went and said, I want this guy, pushed Belichick aside, brought him into the University of Miami, Southern guy from Alabama. He had a great interview with South Carolina's radio show. It's on YouTube. Just write Taylor Edwards, South Carolina. And talked about some of his philosophy. Good. He seemed like a good guy, Southern guy, again, from Alabama. I believe he's from Birmingham and played baseball in college. Someone you tell he can relate. He's not just like a numbers crunching kind of guy, but at the same time, he's seen how the SEC operates at the highest levels of talent acquisition and, has a stint at Alabama, which of course Mario uses as the model for what he does here at the University of Miami. So I think it's a fit. The timing is unusual because you're still kind of in the midst of a very big portal situation where you're trying to add your quarterback, but you'll have a head start on the 26 class, having him in place for that. So I believe he will be taking on, there's a lot to do in personnel. You got to balance the budget. You got to evaluate portal. You got to evaluate high school. You got to evaluate juniors. So sophomores, freshmen, so there's a lot to do in this department. I think he's just another voice, a different voice to add a different perspective coming from the SEC level, but at the same time, working within what Miami does in the recruiting operation, which has had a lot of success, but needs a tune-up after, the recruiting class not being where it needed to be this past season.
I was going to say before that, D, should we get into the basketball news from today?
Let's get into it.
Yeah, so bit of basketball transfer news mid-season, which is, not always very common, but with Coach L stepping down, Miami players are given that 30-day window to hit the portal. And Isaiah Johnson-Arrigu, a wing player out of Minnesota that both you and I, D, were fans of. We went to a practice. We saw him up close, physically had a good build to him, has had limited action this year, and looks like a guy who could rebound the ball, defend a little bit. But obviously, it's not the same situation he committed to when he signed here, and he's taking advantage of this 30-day window. Going to be interesting to see how many more, if there's any more that take advantage of this. And then obviously we'll see what happens the rest of the year. But this type of story will be something to watch the rest of the year.
Yeah, it's sad because this is a guy we were just texting about like 3 days ago. That we like this guy.
He was playing the other day against Virginia Tech, and I was like, man, I like this guy. He's good.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, man. And I really like this freshman class. Obviously, the team's a disaster, right? It's one of the worst Canes basketball teams we've ever seen. But I like the freshmen, right? I like Isaiah. Jaleel Bethea, he's got work to do. He's not your typical one and done as far as the impact he's making, but you can see why he's rated so high with his one-on-one scoring. Austin Schwartz, I like the shot. I like the fundamentals. I like the size. I think he's got a chance. And then Divine, that's our favorite player. He had 7 assists against Virginia Tech. I think you could build a whole program around him. So I like those guys, as do you. I know you do. So it's sad to lose this one, and you just hope you can keep at least one of these guys to build forward with the next coach instead of just having a whole brand new team. You're going to lose a lot of these guys, but
and 818 Cali Kane says Bethea's next. I think why would he stay at a rebuilding program now? I mean, look, I think there's a couple things to look at with these situations. Bethea is a guy who I think needs to play basketball right now, like for his development, right? I think Isaiah Johnson-Arrigo is not a guy that was expecting to be like a one and done or two and done guy. Bethea, I think, needs another year in school. Whether he comes back to Miami or not, I guess we'll see, right? That'll be something to track. But leaving mid-year, I don't think would be a great look for him as a high-profile guy. Hasn't had a good start necessarily to his career at Miami. And Isaiah Johnson-Arrigo, I just looked it up. He's played in 8 games, D. I don't know what the cutoff in basketball for a red shirt is. Obviously, it's 4 games in football, but it's a percentage of the games played. So I would imagine that would be he could still get a red shirt. So with Isaiah Johnson-Arrigo, probably going to try to retain that red shirt.
Can he play for the team he goes to if he wants
Not
to?
mid-season, no. I don't think he can mid-season.
Well,
there's guys who are enrolling mid-year in other schools, but not from the transfer portal.
With Bethea, he's going to get recruited from scratch anyways, so maybe he likes Miami. I really don't know. I've seen him at football games. I saw him at the women's basketball game I was at on Sunday. Speaking of tough losses, man, the athletic department's not on a very good run right now. Tough loss for the ladies. A game against Virginia Tech that they should have won. They were up big, and then they blew it in the fourth quarter. But, he was there. He was in the front row, so he's still engaged. Maybe playing more will bring him out of his shell a little bit, and we'll see. Who knows who the next guy is? I hope we at least have an opportunity for whoever the new coach is to recruit Bethea, Divine, Schwartz, assuming he wants to keep these guys.
And I'm just speculating here, but going to a lot of these games, I don't know how warm the relationship between Larrañaga and Bethea had been recently. Bethea wanted to play more. Larrañaga, a guy who historically doesn't necessarily trust young guys. And you could just, again, going to these games, like watching certain things, watching reactions to shot selections and reactions to when you're pulled out of a game like that. I would think that Bethea maybe feels a little bit more comfortable in the current situation right now. So hopefully plays with some more confidence moving forward and can kind of salvage this thing.
And like the Divine fan club continues, we have 7 assists yesterday, 8 assists.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how many times have Miami Hurricane point guards done that recently? So if I had to pick one player to build around for the long term, because Bethea, if you get the most out of him, you get him from 1 year. I like Divine. Hopefully we can keep him. Let's see what we can get. Back to football here. Question about Sluka, QB. We could do better than that. I mean, that's he
for that. Let Luke Nickel go win the job.
Yeah, Matt Sluka. This is a guy who played for UNLV. He was originally at Holy Cross, right? Yeah. And then he goes to UNLV. He was a big FCS quarterback. Was doing well at UNLV, and then did certain NIL promises didn't work out. He left. It was a whole.
To me, it's a huge red flag that he was the first QB to enter the portal and still doesn't have a landing spot at this point. I'm sorry.
Yeah. We can do better than that. So look, I wanted Mendoza. I thought that would have been a layup. I thought he was a lot better than Emory. I mean, you guys saw now in the Pop-Tart Bowl why I'm cautious about going forward with Emory at the quarterback position. But I would love to get Mendoza. I think Carson Beck, though, when you just look at the options, to me, he makes the most sense. And I implore people to watch him and not think, oh, this guy's not worth the first overall pick, right? Because some guys get hyped, then you're like, oh, they're not worth that hype. So you look at them a different way. But when you look at them as just the individual player, this guy's a good player, man. He's got a lot of experience. He's old. He's tall. He's athletic. He's got a good arm. He's thrown for 1 million yards in the SEC. you could do work with Carson Beck. And if you give a good offensive line, good running game, good receivers, he can help you. That to me is the one that makes a lot of sense. Plus, it makes sense for him.
Tony Terrell's been asking about Keon Jenkins, the FIU quarterback. What about him? He had entered the portal, and now he's back. I think he's staying. I think FIU is a good spot for him with
I think
the new staff over there.
I think that his time is out. That's lights out Jenkins, who, by the way, I like the player big time for what he's doing. And I think FIU, for the first time, I feel actually makes sense what they're trying to do with Willie Simmons. I like their direction. You got A.J. Allen there. Antonio Tripp just committed, former Kane, just committed on the O-line. So, they could kind of be like that school that gets the guys from Miami that for whatever reason don't make it, but they like living in Miami. Go to FIU with Willie Simmons, and you got a program going. That kind of makes sense. I like FIU right now, and I like him as the quarterback there. I don't see him as an option for the Kings, at least not now.
I wanted to get to this comment real quick, saying Emory's not been given a fair shot. And I've kind of seen this sentiment a little bit when people say, oh, why was Dawson calling the game so differently when Emory came in? And I think a lot of times we saw this, people were asking for certain DBs to play more throughout the season. We saw people get playing time, nothing changed. Coaches see certain things in practice and they know what players are capable of, right? Games are different than practices, but like when Emory had an opportunity to play as a freshman, yes, it was as a freshman, a bit different of a situation, but the game was still called a certain way when he had his chance. Then we saw it called the way it was the other day, trying to preserve a lead. But like, I think Dawson has an idea of what he feels he's capable of.
Yeah, I agree. And he averaged 1.9 yards per pass. So when they did pass, it was not good at all. So that's the concern. Our guy Champy saying, "I love that shirt, P. We need a quarterback. Hope the staff feels the same way."
We're still waiting on the in studio order, man. I don't know.
Yeah, Champy Seafood. We're waiting on the in studio stone crabs, but there's a shirt right there. If you need seafood, Google Champy Seafood, the best in the business locally. But a guy doesn't know anything about sports, unfortunately,
or much else, quite frankly.
He does know about stone crab though. 904 Hurricane saying, pretty sure yours is rated as a 4th-round pick, hence the possibility of his return. I listened to a podcast with some former NFL executives, NFL scouts called Move the Sticks. Strongly recommend if you're into draft stuff. And they were talking about yours, and they said, which kind of matches what I'm seeing, quite frankly, that he looks good when you watch that Arizona State game. And he made some big throws, and he's talented. So like, he had an up and down year, injuries, whatever. But if you're just looking at him now, and if you're looking at him against Alabama last year, looking against Michigan this year, some of the big games he's played, Clemson, I mean, this guy's a pretty good player, man. I mean, he's talented, he's twitchy, he's tall, he's got a good arm. He has played college football. He's not like a one and done.
It's kind of like, what it reminds me of, D? It's kind of like the MVP voting. Like the voting's done before the season. Everyone kind of has their opinion made up, but then you still have the playoffs to go. And like, if he keeps playing like this, he's going to keep working himself up the board.
Yeah. If you ask me to project it, I think Ewers to NFL. Milroe already went to NFL. And then, we'll see on Beck. The word on Beck was that the initial feedback after the NFL wasn't that good. He's hurt. And he didn't have a great year. So that'd be, to me, something that makes a lot of sense. Again, the Kyron Drones is another one that has portal eligibility. But with him, it's just going to be, are you getting the version that you saw in 2023 and you saw against the Miami Hurricanes at the Rock? Or you're getting the guy that's been a little inconsistent and who's been hurt. So
that was a weird situation. Was he hurt the other day?
Yeah, he was hurt.
Okay.
The coach said he was banged up.
Because to me, that screams, he announced he's coming back. We have an investment in him next year. We're not going to ruin that investment in one bowl game here.
But I think he was playing hurt. I think that was the rationale there. Maybe if it was a playoff game, he could have played, but it wasn't in the cards for that particular game. Lasas says, Nickel, QB1. It's about Luke Nickel, the quarterback that Miami signed in this high school class. If you're talking about the worst case, I'll say worst case scenario. I would say the kind of like final scenario. I like Luke Nickel, man. If you can't add a portal quarterback, Luke Nickel looked incredible in the playoffs. There's people around Georgia saying this guy's one of the best quarterbacks to come through there in years. He was already pretty good. He's improved a ton. Bigger than I expected, more athletic than I expected, better arm than I expected. The processing is there. His stats were insane. I mean, I think it was like 21 for 22 in the championship game against one of the best teams in the country. So I am a big time Luke Nickel believer, and I think he's probably more college ready than other young freshmen, and excited to see what he can do in spring. And, if you do not have an upgrade through the portal, I think Nickel, like your last option, you do a Kaya thing, right? Where Kaya in 2014 had good players around him. You started him, and I think he led the ACC in touchdown passes that year. Now, they also finished, what was the record in 2014? Not very good. I think it was like 7-6 or something like that. So it didn't work out in that way, but the player was good. The true freshman quarterback, Kaya, was good that year. So, we'll see.
Yeah. And look, I think although it's not the perfect situation, I wouldn't rule out someone at the quarterback spot being added post spring.
Yeah. Which again, not be ideal, but it could happen. Kyle's saying we need a wide receiver. I'm told there's a lot of interest in Noah Thomas from Texas A&M. He was visiting Georgia this past weekend. Texas A&M is trying to bring him back from the portal. They've done that with a couple kids. Miami wants to get involved in that for sure. So I'm looking at the 2001 Hurricanes because I'm pretty sure that would not be the scenario that Miami wants to repeat from a record standpoint. So they're actually not 7-6. They were 6-7 that year, losing the bowl game to South Carolina, which was a miserable bowl game.
Did Duke have a fumble at the end of that game?
Yeah, it was a close game, actually, but it was miserable cold. Your classic Miami. I mean, you finished the season with 4 losses. So that year, yeah, I remember the first game against Florida State, Kyle was like on fire. That was one of the best games ever from the offense, first half. And then Florida State came back, Dalvin Cook. That was one of many Dalvin Cook heartbreak games. They came back to win. Then after that, you lost 4 in a row. The defense that year was absolutely pathetic. A D'Onofrio special. Didn't D'Onofrio get hired? Who hired D'Onofrio? I saw Ghost in the Mount Donaldson.
UCF as an analyst, as a defensive analyst, back home in the state of Florida.
Ugh. So looking at the 2014 defense, a Mark D'Onofrio special. Miami actually scoring defense was okay. 43rd in the country. Sure didn't feel that way. That team felt like it sucked on defense, but maybe it wasn't that bad. I kind of had a good year that year. He wasn't the reason that team struggled in 2014. It was everybody else. But I mean, 6-7 for Miami after a 10-3 year like this, year 4 Mario Cristobal, that would lead to some planes, unfortunately, and some banners. So, I don't think they're in a hurry to start Luke Nickel, although individually, I think he could probably do some things similar to what Kaya did as a freshman.
Yeah, without a doubt. We're over 2,000 here, guys. Remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel. CanesInsight.com. Completely free website. Sign up. Join the discussion there on the forums. It's a fun time on there, and you get everything first.
Yeah, Pete, pull up the commitment tweet for Ethan O'Connor, or the commitment thread for Ethan O'Connor. You got about 33,000 views, 348 responses. Go pull that one up while we're talking here and answer some questions so people can see what's going on. Ghost in the Mount Donaldson saying it was Sonny Odogu's fault. Sonny Odogu tried out for the WWE. I don't know what happened there. I thought he could have been a pretty good one.
That's my boy, man. I saw him at the gym the other day, man, at UM.
Why he's not at WWE? What happened? He had a chance there. He was big, flexible, good personality. He messed up there. He could have had a chance.
I think it was a tryout. I'm not sure if he passed the.
Well, that's not for everybody. Not everybody can compete at the highest levels of sports entertainment. So, we'll see. I know Evidence Njoku, I think, tried out as well. So, P, while you're pulling up the website. So, Fantillation zones. Hardy got a rhythm as a QB, running the ball 90% of the time and throwing a 10. I agree with you. I'm not at practice. Maybe Emory does suck, but we don't know that. Basically saying that he thinks that the game plan hurt Emory. There's something to it.
I think the thing more than the game plan was that he hasn't played since that injury. Well, not actually, no. He played a couple times during the season, but like it had been a couple months there, D.
Yeah, I just don't like the traits. I don't like the athleticism.
I'm with you on it.
I need better athletes. Doesn't have to be Michael Vick, but give me a better athlete. Lance Oreste saying, I organized to fly those fire banners on Canes Insight. So, yeah, it was a wild time. I had nothing personally to do with it, but the website, that's why we have these forums. So what you're looking at here is if you're not a part of Canes Insight, the website is a forum. It's kind of like Twitter or Facebook, but it's a message board forum. and it's been around since 2011. The community preceded it goes back to like the mid-90s. People have been on here forever, just always arguing, providing their views on the Canes, organizing banners to fly coaches. And we get a commitment like this. Look at the gifs, man. People are all excited. I'm not sure what all of them mean. I'm not sure all of them are safe for work, but people have a lot of fun. And you know, these threads go on like this. It is the number one spot to be on when you want to talk Canes. Really could be there on all day because news right when it happens gets posted right on there, and people are making post after post after post. Here's a good one here from about Ethan O'Connor, the cornerback we signed, 79.1 PFF grade, which is outstanding. 4 INTs, 6 pass breakups, 62% passer rating allowed, 81.1% coverage grade. Those are really good numbers for Miami's new cornerback. It's going to be interesting to see how these guys all fit, who plays nickel, who plays safety. And I asked some sources about this, and what they said was, listen, we got to see who the new defensive coordinator is, and that's going to dictate a lot of this stuff about who lines up where, because it depends on what he likes and what he wants. Right now, get the talent in the building. They need to reshape that room because it has not been recruited well enough in high school or the portal. There's a dearth of talent there outside of OJ Frederick. We just need better players. And add up O'Connor, a Brantley, a Carnley. You've upgraded the talent in that room significantly while also upgrading the experience and having multiple years of eligibility for 2 of those guys. So far a home run. If you got Xavier Lucas here at the end, I don't know what more you could do at the cornerback position. That's elite stuff. Plus they're older players. And Spo One Moral makes a great point. Don't sleep on Ryan Mack. Ryan Mack from St. Thomas Aquinas, true freshman last year, was great in the Under Armour practices around this time last year, stood out, rose in the rankings because of how good he was against top receivers. He's been hurt, so he hasn't played this year at all, even with Miami's cornerback troubles, but he'll get healthy and he could be a factor there at the cornerback spot. But there's a lot of players out there. It's a good problem because you're going to let the cream rise to the top with a new defensive coordinator that doesn't know any of these guys. He's looking at it clear. Mack and Patterson at safety would be good, Callie Kane says. I think Mack more nickel or corner, Patterson at safety, and then also Dylan Day at safety. He played a lot in the bowl game, stand out on special teams all day, the true freshman from Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Yalaha Kane says 4 drives and he sucks. Incredible. How quick is Moxie against Clemson and FSU gets tossed?
I mean, I think the problem is Pete, chime in because I've been talking a lot. I'm losing my voice. But, Emory,
he was 8 for 23 against Clemson or against Florida State. I forget one of those games.
And it was a lot of the same issues. It's just, to me, my fundamental problem here is nothing looks easy. Everything looks hard. The movement looks hard. The steps look hard. The throws look hard. Not hard in terms of the velocity, just hard in terms of the delivery. It just doesn't look smooth and easy. Compared to Cam Ward, which I know no one's going to be Cam Ward, but man, everything he does looks easy and natural. We need a little more, to me, coordination, fluidity, athleticism at that particular position. And I'm not sure we have that in the room right now.
So look, the quarterback spot is going to be a hot topic until something happens there. I think that goes without saying, but still have some playoff games to go here. And I think the Carson Beck one is probably the main thing to kind of monitor, as you mentioned. So we got until January 15th there.
A lot of action left to go. Like and subscribe to this show. Appreciate everybody's support. Oh, by the way, how can we not talk about the Miami Hurricane team store, Pete? MiamiHTS.com. If you're out of town, this is Miami's official retail provider. If you want to get the official gear from the school, all this money goes to the athletic department. So talk about revenue sharing, all this other stuff. Go right there. No other reason to shop anywhere else besides the Miami Hurricane team store. This is across the street from the University of Miami next to Thesis Hotel. But if you're not near Coral Gables, you're out of town, MiamiHTS.com. Use promo code INSIGHT20 and you get 20% off your first item. That's online, promo code INSIGHT20. If you're at the store, just say Canes Insight, Insight20, whatever you want to say. They got a button for Canes Insight right there on the computer. They'll hit that button. You'll get 20% off your first item. So appreciate everybody supporting the people who support us and who will get you the best Canes gear on the planet.
Go Canes.
Go Canes.